What's up, everybody? It's Polish Pete. I'm here in Omnia's headquarters in Golden Valley, Minnesota, and this is the first of many special episodes of Know Your Holes. That's right, Know Your Holes will be a masterclass in learning how to use our very impressive Omnia Pro app and all the features, not just on the app, but on the web, that'll help you off the water and on the water be more efficient. I'm joined today by Omnia's very own expert angler and CSR extraordinaire, and also kind of liaison between our tech team and our customers with Omnia Pro, Chase Hull. And then behind the soundboard there and behind the computer there, all the managing the whole ordeal tonight is Kip Youngquist, our head of content here at Omnia Fishing, and Ethan Bowman, representing the great state of Wisconsin and soon to be a one-time marathon runner. So we're excited for Ethan. But this is going to be something that we're going to revisit a whole bunch. Obviously, tonight's a very special night for lots of reasons. One, it's the first night of Know Your Holes, and I think you'd all say more importantly, it is election night. It's a very important night for all of you to get out there and do your civic duty, so we hope we're not interrupting that at all. Know that this is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel so that you can always go back and visit this. So by all means, if you haven't voted, get out there and vote. We did discuss moving this to another night, but honestly, this kind of works out fine to be on tonight because this is our first of many. This is new software for us. This is going to be a new studio that we're working on in here. So if there's mistakes tonight, hopefully it's not that. Where we really do break down kind of how we really view how this app's going to help people catch more fish. And there's a ton of new technologies that will be rolling out over time here, hence the need for this kind of, I don't know if you want to call this a master class, but some sort of communication piece from us to you guys, the users of Omnia Pro, because there's a lot to digest here. So hence why Chase is here. Chase is going to be a fixture of this going forward. There might be different people in my seat, whether it's Seth we get in here or other guests, Kip or Ethan and things like that. But hopefully I'm on a little bit more too when it's relevant for me to be on. But Chase is going to be a fixture of it because Chase is, like I said, he is the true voice for Omnia Fishing between the end users and our tech team. So that's really important. So get to know Chase for sure. I got to do a couple house cleaning things before I kick it over to Chase to start us off with taking us through kind of what the non-pro version of our mapping technologies are. Win some prizes for being interactive with us, comments and questions. There will be gift cards available to people who do ask comments or who ask questions if we do use them on the show or if we see that they're good later. Like I said, this will be something that tails off. They won't always be live. We'll be just adding in more content to this channel. So you need to know this channel, right? So be subscribed to our if you're watching this on YouTube Live, definitely subscribe to YouTube, leave a comment, like the stream, and you're definitely you'll be entered to win this Bubba's Smartfish Scale. So obviously the Bubba's Scale has been super, super popular for us. We figured we'd grab one and give it to one of you winners. You can also win this if you're a Facebook listener. So if you're following us on Facebook, make sure you're following us. You like this stream and you leave a comment. It's going to be how we'll dig through those comments and find out who's eligible to win it, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. Like I said, there's also a whole bunch of gift cards that are going to be available for people who are interactive in this. And like I said, this does have a tail to it. You'll see clips of this throughout the week. So we will be checking the comments as we go and hopefully responding to them when we have the opportunity to do that. Chase is a busy dude, so we can't just say that he'll get right to your comments. But hopefully tonight we get some questions we can answer. But I want to, without further ado, kick it over to Chase to take us kind of through, from what I understand, like this is kind of the view of how this could help you if you're not already committed to pro, which I just have to touch on this. If you're not pro, you're nuts, because the commerce benefits alone are huge. And obviously I'm very biased in why I think those are so important. I'm on the merchandising side of Omnia Fishing here. The commerce benefits are no-brainer. It's 10% back on all your purchases, exclusive pro pricing, exclusive first dibs on hard to find items that we get back in stock. The list goes on and on as far as pro goes for the commerce benefits, but there's also a ton of fish catching benefits as well. But let's kick it over right now to Chase. So we want to take us through kind of, what you're doing right now, what the basis of this masterclass is.
Absolutely. Thanks for the introduction, Pete. So as Pete kind of alluded to, the real goal of this class is to teach you how to find fish on your own and how you can use the mapping, how you can use fishing reports, hot bait techniques, and all that stuff to really go find fish on your own. Because let's be real, there are places where you can just go buy waypoints these days.
Yes, there are.
And that's really not what we're aimed to do here.
No.
We want you to be able to go find your own secret spot sometime.
Yeah. That sounds just dirty to me, buying waypoints, but whatever.
All right. So tonight, I just really wanted to start off with walking through our app, all the features that are available on the app, and we'll start off with a non-pro subscription overview. So you'll see everything you get with the app without the subscription.
So how much does it cost to download the app and just play with this?
Absolutely free.
Gotcha.
100% free.
Yep.
And then once we get that overview done, we will load up a pro subscription to see what you get with that. And then at the end, I think Pete and I will go over some fall fishing techniques and kind of how we would plan a day on the water using this.
Beautiful.
So I will start off with the, you guys can see the page up top there. I'm going to start in the very lower corner, the account button. This is where you're going to go when you want to start off. Right now I am logged in. You can see my profile up there. But this is where you would go so you can save your profile stuff. This is going to allow you to save the lakes that you like to follow. This is going to allow you to save the species of fish you like to follow.
Sweet.
And that's going to really curtail everything going forward with the shopping experience. So leaving the account page, once you've got logged in, cart is empty right now. I'm just going clockwise through the bottom right now. I've got my list of lakes I follow. Right now it's just Lake Minnetonka and Mille Lacs, a couple popular ones up here in Minnesota. Your shopping tab is your direct link to the Omnia store, so you can purchase all of the hot baits that you find in the fishing reports. And then in the lower corner, that brings you back to the map. If you go up just a hair to the 3 lines, again, that is another lakes that you follow. The icon above that is going to show you your list of waypoints. And we will get more into this later, but right now I just want to give the brief overview, show you kind of where everything's at, how you find everything. So in your waypoints, we've got filters. You can filter by the waypoint type. You can filter by the lake, and you can also filter by a time frame. And what that does is when you filter it down, it will only show that list of waypoints that come up with the filters. Oops, I lost my...
Trust me, everybody, I'm really geeked out about a lot of these waypoint features. I really was hoping we could get into a lot of that tonight, but trust me, there's a long tail to that waypoint stuff that's going to need to be its own episode. So trust me, I want to talk about that. I do, but that's going to be something for a future episode. We'll get into waypoint management and things of that nature, but for right now, let's let Chase kind of keep it at that 101 level.
All right, I had lost some of my icons there, so I did a hard close of the app to get out of it, and then reopened it, and I'm still logged in. That kind of refreshed everything for me there. So, continuing on. These are our weather layers. Right now they are locked because we do not have the pro subscription selected yet, but I just want to show you where you're going to be able to find these, and we will be able to show you these in action here in a few minutes.
So let me just verify that. All of that weather stuff is only available if you have a pro subscription, if you purchase the subscription.
Weather layers. So those are layers that are overlapping on the map.
Gotcha.
We do still have weather updates and weather forecasts that are available with the free account.
Gotcha.
And I want to show that here. So this next icon that I selected, it shows you your water pins. I want to select my waypoints. And then this will also show you the boat landings.
Ooh, boat landings.
Boat landings are huge come
Yes.
fall, and we're going to be talking about these more coming up. But these are, I usually leave these selected off because they do overload the map
Yeah,
quite
they're
a bit when
cluttered
they are
up
on
with-
there.
yeah.
A lot of clutter.
I will say this from personal experience, though, guys, like he's saying, he's absolutely correct. It will clutter up your map, especially in Minnesota where there's so many lakes. But when I've been down in the southern part of the country, driving around, looking, especially at big reservoirs and driving around down there, it is insanely helpful to be able to zoom out and have that boat landing pins up. It does help you find places out of the wind or possibly some smaller ramps to go to that are a little less busy.
Yeah, very much. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
And that brings us to what I really want to show you guys, and that's the lake pins. So I'm going to select the Lake Minnetonka lake pin, and this is where you're going to find a lot of the best information from our website. So right away, this pops up the current conditions on Lake Minnetonka. You can see we've got very little wind coming out of the north. We got a little cloud cover and some precipitation in the area. And when we click on the lake or the lake details here, here's where we're going to find the overview. Again, current conditions, solar phases. And here's where we're going to find our fishing reports. And this is where you're going to get a lot of the juice and where you're going to find a lot of information to help you out on the water.
Yeah.
These reports come in almost daily for us. And obviously the more popular lakes are going to have more reports to them, but you can still apply those reports to some of the smaller lakes in that area too.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So moving over, we've got top techniques, and this does include lakes from the area. So this takes in techniques from elsewhere and not just Lake Minnetonka. And that's why we've got blade bait popping up, because we got a lot of smallmouth up here.
Yes, we do.
And that's a pretty hot fall technique for the smallies up here.
Wore my thumb out on Tuesday with one.
This is new. Our media section just got added to this, the lake page. So here's where you can load up all of the videos. We've got some great lake downs from Brad Lutner. We've got Pete's favorite TRD colors in there. So that's where you're going to find all the media, all the video, and some really good information on some of the lakes. Then we've got our recent hot bait selections. Again, these come directly from the fishing reports from that specific lake. So these are going to be much more detailed than just the techniques. These break it down to the actual baits. And then lastly, we've got our weather forecast. So even though we don't have a pro subscription here, we're still getting, I think almost a 7-day forecast there. So you can look ahead, check out the weather, plan on when you want to get out on the water.
Beautiful. So obviously, as Jason's pointing out there, you don't need to have a pro subscription to get a lot of value out of doing some homework off the water or even on the water. A lot of this stuff that he just showed me is stuff that if I was hole hopping, like we tend to do in Minnesota a little bit, if I was driving out west of the cities, north of the cities, down south of the city, I could do a little homework rolling around on my phone without even having to log into or having a subscription. Yeah.
Absolutely. All of that stuff comes completely free, just downloading the app and creating an Omnia account.
And a lot of this you can do on the web at home too, correct?
All of this is, yes, thank you. All of this is also available on the web at home on a desktop. You can access all of the fishing reports. You can access all of the lake information from a desktop. So all of these features that we just showed are all available there.
Beautiful.
So sorry to interrupt here, but we've got a good question from Tom regarding fishing reports.
Okay.
He's wondering, can you filter lakes by fish in a fishing report? Example, show lake pins for only lakes that have walleye fishing reports.
That is a great question. I think the fishing reports, you have to look at the lake specifically.
Yeah, and then change the species.
Yeah.
I will tell you, however, that is a really good question because initially we did have that feature. We just hadn't gotten the volume of fishing reports for other species at the time. So I think that's something, Tom, to answer your question, that'll be active down the road once we have a higher volume of multi-species reports. To right now, as far as I'm aware, you're going to need to go, like Chase said, into the actual lake and then select species.
Yep. So again, using Lake Minnetonka for the example here. Click back over to fishing reports, and there is the species tab where you can select walleye. But again, that would only show you the walleye reports from Minnetonka.
Yes.
But great question.
Yes, it's an awesome question. These are the kind of questions, by the way, folks, or any of you watching, that we want to hear, because this is also something, obviously, our tech team's paying attention to, and we're going to be making updates regularly. We do every week on our app, so there'll be a lot of things that we're changing. So please speak up if you have any questions whatsoever.
All right, Kip, I'm going to log into my pro account here.
Perfect. Give me 1 second.
Yes. Let's try and show all of Chase's personal information as much as possible.
All right, you're good to go.
All right. I go to my account page, log out.
I will have to touch once again, sorry folks, on the commerce side of that pro subscription, since he is logging into pro. Obviously, with the holidays coming up upon us and the early Black Friday stuff, it's definitely something you want to be paying attention to. I do suggest we have a feature, if you have an account at Omnia Fishing, to create a wish list. I'm going to give you a little hint there. You should go on there and put some of your favorite items in your wish list. But without holding it up anymore, let's talk more about the pro here now that Chase is logged into his account.
I am logged in and ready to roll. All right, so I've got my pro subscription logged in. So now when we open the mapping icons, we've got the ability to select all of these now.
Okay, cool.
So we've got our Navionics layer.
Which, if you're not familiar with Navionics, they are one of the leaders, period, in chartography or charted maps out there for depth and contours. So we have those available, all these bodies of water all over the country for you.
Their topography maps are fabulous, and they've got coverage on just about all the lakes. They've got a lot of coverage.
Yep.
So then we start talking about the CMAP social layers, and these layers are actually uploaded directly from CMAP users.
Yes.
So the first thing you're going to know, opportunity or
I have to say, when I first saw these, and I did see that the coverage was what it was, I didn't realize the value of it till I actually started monkeying with it on the water. This is one of those ones that you actually showed me the value of. If you think about it, if this is social mapping, it's coming actually from sonar data from somebody's boat, an actual angler's boat. So they're in high percentage areas. So you know whether what are we on right now? We're on the vegetation layer, correct?
Yep.
These are areas that have had vegetation present, whether it was however recent the survey was done from this angler, that was those were areas where vegetation was present. The sonar was picking that up. So like my home lakes, we'll use this one for an example, Lake Minnetonka. I know traditionally there's areas now that have had vegetation here. Whether or not that vegetation's been sadly sprayed, didn't make it through a winter, anything like that, but it still gives me high percentage areas to drive with my boat and physically go see if I can locate some vegetation. And I can mimic the areas by looking at my Navionics chart and see other areas that are flats or similar coves or similar breaks that might hold some vegetation similar to the areas that this angler has been so gracious to provide us with some vegetation data on.
And at the very least, if you zoom in, I mean, it kind of gives you a pretty good idea of where that weed line is in the summer.
Correct.
And so it kind of gives you a good idea where to at least start looking, where you're going to want to start side imaging more.
Yep.
And checking out to see where that grass is still growing, where it's healthy. Especially this time of year in the fall, we've got a lot of grass that's starting to turn brown.
Exactly.
It's not green anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's something you almost have to fish to find out.
You do. I mean, typically, without a tool like this, there's no way around it for guys like us. I was just getting my butt kicked by everybody on Minnetonka, so you just had to crank the motor over and start driving. And luckily, about the time I got into it, side imaging was available, so I could cut that time down. But there was no substitute for just physically driving and putting hours on your boat and looking.
Yep.
This does eliminate a lot of time. I know where there's historically been vegetation present.
Nice. Well, I'm actually taking tomorrow off, and I'm going to do a little fall fishing myself.
Are you?
We got one of our last nice days, it looks like, and I'm going to take advantage of it. So I'm going to Tonka.
Are you?
I think I'm going to.
To put ourselves through this, but we do. And that's in order to be competitive on a body of water. that is highly pressured. You have to go there and put your time in on it. And finding them in the fall is a little harder, but it is very rewarding when you get it done. When you do find those fall fish, as you guys know, as you can see in probably in your Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds, it's a hero time of year where you get some big ones. But it's not super easy. They make it look easy on social media. It can be tough, but I'm interested to see where your thoughts.
Is I don't like launching on the big part of the lake.
Okay.
So I got to find a boat ramp that's at least close to my accesses or where I want to fish.
Okay.
And so I just clicked that. We got a couple of them right here. We got new.
And by the way, folks, on those as those boat pins pop up, those boat ramp pins he's got, you can select those, and they actually give you directions to that. You can click on that and actually map you right to that boat ramp driving wise. So, pretty cool stuff there. Hoping to have bathrooms on there soon.
Bathrooms would be a huge addition.
Yeah.
Chase, before you get too far into your day on Tonka, we got another good question from Andrew, again related to fishing reports, but he's wondering, when you submit a fishing report, do you have to select a bait or a lure from the drop-down menu in order for it to be approved?
Yes, you do. And there's two reasons for that. One, we want to see what you guys are using. And two, you get credits if they buy that bait. So
Yeah.
it only benefits you to select a bait for that.
Yeah. So even if it's not exactly what you were using, if it was a lipless crankbait, I'm going to go with that one. Select one that you think's the closest to it to help somebody else understand that that was what you were doing, and that was a bait that was the most similar that someone would have some success with on the water.
Yeah. And if you do choose to share what type of lure you're using, or you're picking a lipless crankbait, we do have a comment section as well where you can get more specific and say, hey, I wasn't using a red eye shad, but this is close to what I was using.
Yeah. We have a community here we've sort of built here in Omnia already with a lot of active users. If you're somebody who really puts some time and effort into this, we're obviously going to notice, and we do ladder you up within our ecosystem into being a silver level and gold level ambassadors, and there's ways up. That also enables you the ability to communicate with us and let us know too about items that we're not currently carrying that you are fishing with and having success with. Chase is able to then communicate to my team on the merchandising side and say, hey, seems like we've had a lot of success from an angler that's helping us out on the app and doing fishing reports, and that's having a ton of success with a different lipless crankbait than you bozos bought. So then we'll go chase it down and go get it added on the site. Believe it or not, there are absolutely additions on the site that are driven by our ambassador feedback. So
100%. We definitely take that seriously, and we definitely push those recommendations to the merchandising team. Yep. We want to see those baits succeed too. So
yep.
All right, jumping back to the map. So what I did here was I loaded up the wind layer on top of our vegetation layer. I just want to make sure I'm not dumping my boat into 3-footers tomorrow,
That's a brilliant point. Wind layers and boat ramps, I think, is one of the coolest things I could imagine on here, because I've talked about it on here a lot. I have an 18-foot bass boat, and it hates going slow in big water, especially at a boat ramp. That's a big factor to me, but I also want to, just because you have it on this layer right now, and it's just making me think, a lot of times, particularly in the fall, when I'm keying in on vegetation, I don't want the wind on the vegetation that I'm fishing. Different from other times of year, at times where I'm looking for wind to kind of mask what I'm doing, especially if I'm using moving baits or things like that. Just me personally, I find myself having a little bit more success. I don't know if it's just because I think the vegetation doesn't get messed with as much in the wind, the late in the year vegetation, but it's also maybe just my comfort level too when I turn into a bit of a wuss in the fall. I don't fish as well when I'm feeling a cutting 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing through my clothes, when I'm not dressed up like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I like to look for vegetation to slow down and pick apart or cover water with out of the wind. So this vegetation layer and this wind layer made me think of that for what you're talking about with fall fishing right away.
And when you're looking for vegetation in the fall, Pete, are you looking for drop-offs? Or are you looking?
I'm going to try and fish pretty quick in the fall to start my day off. Now, moving baits that generally are something that do start to play again, power fishing in the fall.
Yep.
Your chatter baits and your big bladed spinner baits, like your Colorado bladed spinner baits and things like that. So I might start my day off moving and looking for more structure-based vegetation with some drop-offs, points, humps, that kind of stuff, like you said, Chase. But honestly, this particular lake, since we're on it, I've had success in the past slowing down and vertically fishing on flats that still have remaining vegetation on the good, healthy vegetation close to wintering habitat. So just knowing the lake the way I do about some bays that still have bass in it all winter long, I'll fish closer to main lake stuff as I can on flats. So these layers you've already shown me will give me the ability to zoom out, right? Look for a flat close to a spawning bay or a bay that they might winter in and spawn in the spring. And I'll look for healthy vegetation on that. So, yeah, good question. I wish I could give you an honest answer of which one I think is better. It's just I think each day kind of presents a new challenge on that lake.
Kind of got to let the fish tell you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to check out the fishing reports just to see what kind of some of these other people are saying. And it sounds very, very similar to what you were talking about. Flipping docks and shallow, weedy flats.
Yeah. And that makes sense, right? If the docks are still in on your body of water, I don't care where you are in the country. When you get to the water temps are dropping, docks do tend to start playing a lot more because it's a form of cover for them to hang on to that's more reliable than a lot of the vegetation that might be dying off. Up here, anyway.
Now, I've always had a theory. I don't know how correct it is, but I think they become frog eaters. Those frogs start slipping back in the lake. They're crawling around on the bottom. They're not out on the shore as much. I think they're up there ambushing frogs.
Well, I don't have an argument for you on that, seeing as that I have probably, at least in the metro area here where we live in Minnesota, around these bodies of water, I have most of my success with the frogs in the fall. So I'd have to back you up on your theory that they slide up there to the bank and look for that harder cover. Even vegetation that's really strong in the fall. I know for myself, there's a period of time where a lot of this dying off vegetation will mat up around the docks.
Yep.
And I'll look for those mats of vegetation that's died off vegetation that's matted up in shallow water. And that's probably, to your point, the forage base there most likely might be frogs, if you think about it. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And actually, our Navionics layer, if we zoom in, will start showing us kind of which shorelines have a lot of these docks. So I'm just scoping kind of that north shoreline.
Yeah, that's nice.
Some more over here. But this is also the time of year where some of those docks start getting yanked out a little.
They do. You start getting yanked out. And that's where doing my homework ahead of time is what you're talking about here with these layers. I can look and say, if I drive my boat there, put my boat in, and I unfortunately pull up to that north bank because Chase gave me the hot tip, and I get up there and the docks are all gone, well, you're on to plan B at that point. And now I'm going to look for, is there a flat close to me here where I think they might have some late in the year vegetation that's hung on? Is there a channel that the fish could be using as a transition point to go back into kind of a wintering type bay? That's a lot of times channels play a role in this time of year. But obviously, in natural lakes like we're targeting most of the time, vegetation tends to be a really key feature no matter what you're talking about. Even when we're talking docks and things of that nature,
yep.
Vegetation being present is usually key for us. Very different than our friends maybe down in the Ozarks that don't have the same forage base or vegetation to deal with.
Yeah, I guess this bite we're talking about is specifically a grass lake.
You got it, yep.
Definitely grass-focused lake. But I was just looking at some of this stuff. Like this little hump right here looks like it should have some grass around it or potentially in the summer.
Yes.
That's one of those areas I'm going to mark an icon because I want to check that out tomorrow.
Correct.
So I'm going to save that one. You can give it a name if you want. We'll just go Hole 1 for Know Your Holes. And again, without seeing it with my 2D, with my side imaging sonar, I don't know what's there yet.
Yes.
But in theory, there could be some good grass still there.
Yes.
And possibly some structure.
And now Chase is going to have to slap me to not get too excited about going too deep into this. But I want you guys to think about the fact that he just made that marker there. He made that waypoint, and he did name it. And I can tell you that already we have capabilities to really enrich that waypoint and the information that's on it. Soon they'll be able, obviously, photos, things of that nature. But this gives Chase the ability now to, and like I said, this is a whole nother episode, but move this waypoint onto his units or keep it in his phone. Now, me personally, I wouldn't want to put it on my unit until I physically went and checked it, to your point, what you said. I'm going to go now with the boat, verify that I've got some leftover milfoils there that's still looking good, or there's a good coontail patch there that's looking really strong. Now I want that waypoint on my unit in my boat.
Once you verify that
Once I've
something's
verified that it's a good spot. And now if I catch a fish, it even made another step in its level of importance to me. And I can go back, whether I want to do this on the water or later on that evening, if I get back to my desktop or laptop, or even want to monkey around with my phone, I can enrich that waypoint and say, hey, caught a 4-pounder here flipping vertical vegetation, or whatever baits you were using, things of that nature. And you can really enrich things off the water, and makes it easy to kind of organize your areas you're finding success.
Well, that's the key. It makes the features that our waypoint management system have make it so easy to limit down or kind of eliminate unwanted waypoints, or really narrow down the waypoints that you want to see on your unit at a time.
Yes, that's huge.
Again, another episode coming.
I know.
We can't get too deep.
I want to say all sorts of stuff here, guys. I'll just say this before we move on from it. Imagine having success catching, some main lake fish with a certain wind direction, and being able to sort your waypoints by waypoints you've made in that wind direction. That's the type of high level, stuff that we're talking about here. But once again, focus it in, Pete. Rein yourself in. Let's focus on the 101 of what the features on the app are currently doing.
We're looking at tomorrow. We want to go fishing tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. So we've got one spot here. We've talked a lot about docks.
Yes.
We've talked about grass.
Mm-hmm.
What about holes? I mean, would a deep hole like this be something worth checking out? Or
I have seen, I think you could back me up on this, especially on this body of water in particular, that it is a massive amount of forage in this body of water, and bluegills being the main forage. I have seen late in the year, fall times, where you get a concentration of bait fish in some of these holes, and especially if there's vegetation around it. I don't know if it's a wintering thing that they're getting set up in a winter pattern. They're going to hang out in this hole. But I have noticed that. So, yes, it is something that typically this lake doesn't fish like a pattern lake, like down south. At least to me it doesn't, where I can just go run a consistent pattern around the lake. It's more spot on the spot stuff, hence the importance of these layers. But to Chase's point, I have found myself, probably one of the most pattern-rich things has been, whether it be bluegill beds in the spring or something along those lines, but in the late fall, some of these holes, to your point, could be definitely worth checking out. So I'm probably, especially knowing an area of the lake I'm going to target with doing my homework on the weather and the wind and what ramp I'm using, probably going to mark a couple of those holes, to your point.
Okay. And it looks like there's a couple of them on the map here, too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just throw a couple of quick waypoints there. You were also mentioning channels. It looks like we've got a couple of channels going in and out of this bay.
Yeah, and that's not a secret I'm giving out, by the way, guys, on Lake Minnetonka. You've all been yelled at fishing the channels on Lake Minnetonka before, I'm sure. That is something that it's one of those collision points that if you hit it right, it's fantastic. I can't tell you that tomorrow there'll be a bass within 100 yards of a channel, but I can tell you if you do get there and they're there, it can be a productive area. So it is something that you shouldn't be lazy and skip and check. And this is a good way to kind of create a checklist for yourself to make sure you're checking those channels.
Pete, I got to apologize. We skipped a major step here.
Okay.
We forgot to look at water temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be one of the most important things in the fall.
Yes, it can. Rising and falling water temps are usually a big factor to a competitive angler's decisions they make in a day. Obviously, if you're a meat eater, you know that matters too. If you're just a casual angler, it can mean a huge. What I love about what we've done here with this with Pro is having the ability to see that without having to digest a ton of information. It's just going to help me choose an area a lot more effectively and quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to get this to function, all you do is you're going to click into the lake, and that brings up a pop-up letting you know the water temperature and the exact date that data was recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, our last date was October 16th, so it has been a little bit.
It's been a while since it updated, yeah.
But we have had we've had a really dry summer up here, a lot of sun. We're finally getting some precipitation. And the satellites have a tougher time reading through that.
Yep.
And so that's why you got a little bit of a delay, but you're still able to use this. So October 16th, we were at 53, 54 for most of that bay.
Yep.
We click back a day, October 8th, we see some 57s popping in there.
Yep.
And even just 1 week before that, it was almost 70 degrees.
So if you look, that's incredibly valuable information if you take the time to try and digest what he just showed you there. If you think about it, it might not be telling you the exact temperature, the exact day tomorrow when we put in our boat and go out there and try and hit these spots that we're picking out. But it is giving us the roadmap to what's cooling quickest, what's staying warmer the longer amount of time. Especially when we look at that historical data, we know that maybe this area in the north end of this bay is going to stay a little warmer, has stayed a little warmer. Maybe that vegetation I'm looking for that's still a little healthier might be present, more likely to be in that warmer water.
100%. And it also gives you a good clue as to what the water temperature will be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know, we know it was 53 on October 16th, and we can get, you know, based on the weather patterns we've been having, I'm guessing that water's probably upper 40s. But
yeah, it should have cooled off. And now I'm going to do my research on what kind of baits and techniques shine in those water temperatures. And it helps me prepare the night before. I got the right stuff rigged up, as you heard Chase alluding to earlier. And when we started this, to me, this time of year, you get into the 40s, it's blade bait season. And, you know, we talk about that a lot here at Omnia. Sorry to all you blade baiters, we blow that out on too much, but that becomes that time of year. Now, it hasn't been a Tonka technique for me, to be completely honest with you guys. So, but other techniques come to mind. Jig fishing seems to work, whether the water's damn near frozen or it's really hot. So
they'll bite a jig to the bitter end.
There you go. And so I know. When I know I've got water temps that have fallen out of a range of maybe even being that effective with a jerk bait or anything like that, I'm gonna have a jig tied on and some other stuff.
I'm gonna jump in with a question here, quick. It is water temperature related. Chase, you talked about a while ago how early fall you think those bass start to be frog eaters. Chris was wondering when do you quit throwing a frog, and is it water temperature related? What water temperature are you looking for?
I would say it is water temperature related. Anytime I first feel that, first crisp of fall, a frog is on my deck. And that water is still probably in the 70s, low 70s. And I will throw that all the way till that water hits probably mid-50s.
Yep.
Once it hits mid-50s, I get a little bit more cautious. You can still get a couple bites on it, but kind of mid-50s and below, I start going subsurface.
Yes, I would concur with exactly what he said. I think that first crisp, cold night, you think you get that migration of frogs or whatever, and it for whatever reason, for us as northern anglers, that screams frog. It's time to go with the frog. I'm sure it might be the same down south as well, all the way up to those cooler high 50s water temps. I've caught him on a frog in pretty cold water before. But it does stop being as efficient a tool the colder the water temp gets.
And that is probably relative to us, too. Our fish up here just aren't quite as affected as cold temperatures as they are probably in Florida and stuff.
Yeah, exactly right. That's true, too. What you got to think about in these situations is that frog eating thing is very, very, it's fun. Two, it is an effective tool for that fall technique. But when you find yourself in a position where your water temp's dropping out on you, like it is to us right now, for our day tomorrow that we're planning right now, try and find yourself some things that maybe allow you to cover water a little quicker past these spots we're picking that might not be on the bank where a frog's effective. So things like a moving bait, like a chatterbait, slow moving spinner baits and chatterbaits work really well. Big swim baits work this time of year. Kip there behind the screen there, I watched him boat flop some on a Chad with me on Tuesday. There are baits that you can cover water with, and probably, hate that I haven't brought it up, but probably the number one this time of year would be a jerk bait. But I'm going to find myself working my way towards that shallow vegetation, that shallow hard cover this time of year, no matter what, I have this draw to want to go up there and see what it's like. And if there's any presence of forage, healthy vegetation, docks that are still in hard cover, you bet there's a frog that's going to run by them, like you were saying.
Visually looking for forage is so important.
It is.
Looking for those bluegills, looking for the smaller minnows. If they're up shallow, the bass aren't going to be far behind.
Correct.
So visually using your eyes and looking for that stuff is so important.
It is. It is very much so. And then marking that stuff when you do find it to save those areas, those high productive areas, you'll be surprised how it'll help you put the pieces of the puzzle on other bodies of water or even the same body of water. Like Minnetonka by acreage isn't that large, but it is a chain of lakes and it fishes a lot bigger than it actually physically is. So no matter how much time I've spent on it, I still find myself every year as an angler having to make new waypoints, find new spots, find myself trying to be more productive in areas. And a lot of times I can find a lot of that stuff because of my experience in going back and doing my homework on where I've had success in the past.
Yep, 100%. And I think covering water, like you were talking about, is so important because the vegetation's always changing,
Yes,
and
it is.
especially in the fall. So you got to cover water until you find those sweet spots.
And if you it might, so some of you might want to ask the question as we're saying this is like, well, then wouldn't it be beneficial for me to just drop my boat in on the east side of the lake on one boat ramp and fish the whole thing all the way to the west side, covering water and just looking with my eyes and covering water? Go ahead. That takes a long, long time. It can make for a very, very long day. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. If you have the type of job or you have the situation in your life where you could spend days on end aimlessly fishing every square inch of a body of water, that does work. All of us people with a job or a lot of stuff going on in your life, you need to be a little bit more efficient. And these tools that we're providing you with right here, right now, are invaluable when you want to reduce that amount of time you spend trying to find those high productive areas and find those fish, especially in the fall on a lake like this where you could be fishing 10 feet from where the bass are and think that there isn't a bass in that lake and can't catch a thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I alluded to earlier, a lot of times in the fall, some days, most of my production is fishing a jig really slow. Well, that's no way to go find them. I promise you that much. If that's the way they're biting that day, you're more likely to run out of gas before you find a bass doing it that way,
100%.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about yet too much is hard bottom.
Yes.
That is something that I'm always looking for. Summer, spring, not so much in the spring, I should say, but summer and fall.
Yeah.
Spring, I'm looking at, especially around spawn with the boulders and stuff, but especially summer and fall, I'm looking for that hard bottom.
Yeah, this can be a big deal to you ice fishermen out there that are fishing in the winter months.
Yep.
This could be a big deal to, like Chase said, for me personally, I probably should pay more attention to it in this falling and rising water temp seasons like spring and fall. I tend to not look at it as much at those months. I look at it more in the summertime. I am sort of a fallback on my roots as a Minnesota angler and look for hard spots and rocks and offshore main lake kind of hard spots. I probably need to get better at seeing how fish are relating to those in the spring and fall, and this would be a big, huge help to me here if I found a pattern based off that. What I can tell you is this much is the one thing I learned that I find hard bottom helps me with a lot outside of just those summer months where I'm physically looking for a hard bottom transition between vegetation is certain types of vegetation grow on hard bottom a little better than other types of vegetation. So if I do find myself looking for, example, milfoil fish or coontail fish or whatever, sometimes this hard bottom can help you break down the areas in conjunction with that vegetation layer that tend to be an area that might produce the more productive vegetations for you in your body of water.
You know why I love hard bottom so much?
Why?
It doesn't move.
Yeah.
It stays. That rock is there every time you come back to it. So
Yeah.
if they're biting on rocks that day, all of a sudden you can start running it.
Yep.
So I just wanted to check out, I marked this waypoint on this spot earlier when we were looking at the vegetation layer.
Yeah.
And pulling up the hard bottom layer, it looks like there is potentially some hard stuff on there.
I mean, if you look at all the pieces that Chase is kind of slowly putting together on this spot, how highly productive this area certainly looks to be. You've got structure there, you've got hard bottom, you've got a history of there being vegetation present there. This is really, whether you're an angler that likes to fish in the wind or out of the wind, that could be a big factor to me, whether you find me there or not.
Especially when it's cold in the fall.
Yeah, exactly right. But as you can see, you're slowly starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together here, where if you left this on your phone or on an iPad and you were in your boat and you went and you checked these areas and you found yourself having either lower success than you wanted or more success than you wanted, you're starting to develop your skills at breaking down water, and this is something that you can be doing and getting better at while you're not even fishing, which is important to someone like me that doesn't get to fish anywhere near as much as I want to be.
Absolutely. I'm always looking at websites. I'm always reading articles. I'm always studying topography maps.
Yep.
Because that's what interests me.
Without a doubt.
And so, being able to put these pieces of the puzzle together while you're behind your desk,
yes,
or while you're at home, just makes you so much more efficient when you are actually out there casting.
I can tell you folks out there that, like, when you watch Bassmasters or you watch any fishing shows, and they really do, the Linders do a great job of breaking down the habitat they're fishing and the technique they were displaying. Well, sometimes that's really hard to duplicate on your own body of water, just, with a gap of a couple of days from when the last time you watched a show or read an article, to just drawing up on your body of water and finding that. To be able to sit there, digest that information, and then pull your phone out or your iPad or your laptop, for that matter, or anything, log into your account, and then put those pieces together, find some key areas you want to go, deploy that technique. The efficiency of it becomes invaluable over time.
Absolutely. And even just while we're talking here, Pete, I noticed another spot, and I'm going to mark an icon right on this steep break. Got hard bottom that looks like steep break. And I remember Seth talking a few years ago about steep breaks, jerkbait fishing in the fall.
Yeah,
and how it can just be dynamite.
It can.
So I'm going to mark a waypoint there because I want to check that out tomorrow too.
Yep.
And I'm even going to put jerkbait spot. Just so I remember that that's what I was looking at or what I was thinking about when I marked that.
See, this is one of my favorite things about, you guys hear me joke around about it a lot, but believing in my heart that I'm a multi-species angler. But on Minnetonka, particularly on those steep breaks, what Seth's talking about, what Chase is alluding to there, like that steep break jerkbait fishing, a lot of times in the spring and in the fall, that's where I'll bump into our friends, our walleye friends. There are some times that I knock the sides off of in the fall.
Mr. Marble Eye.
Being able to actually categorize that waypoint as someplace I've caught walleyes, maybe even throw a picture there, different icons, all that kind of stuff. That does happen a lot out there in those steep breaks. That's another layer you can identify if you're finding different species. Chase kind of made a point earlier about the forage base. That can be so key on any of your bodies of water where you've identified areas where there's a strong, healthy habitat for bluegills, crappies, all that kind of stuff. I like to mark this map up with all sorts of different ways to catch different species of fish as well, or forage for bass.
Yep. The other great thing about these breaks too is in the fall when you got last week it was almost 80 degrees the day before Halloween, and now we're just hovering above freezing.
That's
so
smart. Right?
Those temperatures are going all over the place, and those steep breaks give those fish a nice, quick jump up and down, so they can stay comfortable. They're still where they want to be, and they don't have to go far.
That's a brilliant point to make. I will relate that to down south. When I've traveled down south in the spring months and fished, I fished a couple tournaments in Alabama and Texas, and I was really struggling at one particular lake in Alabama. And I was told by some angling friends that, hey, if your temps are drastically changing on you, look for vertical cover on those southern reservoirs. They don't have the vegetation or a lot of the stuff that I'm used to fishing. So they were using vertical cover because they could adapt to those water temps quickly up and down. So what Chase alluded to, that absolutely does happen on our bodies of water up here too, but they're just using that steeper break to do the same exact thing. So
And maybe we don't focus it on as much because we have so much vegetation, we have so much
Exactly,
other
yeah.
structure that we kind of overlook that stuff. I think a little bit.
I certainly know I do. That's for sure.
All right, guys. So we're coming up on an hour here.
Okay.
Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
I guess my closing thought is this is exactly how we sit and talk and
Yeah.
plan our days.
Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly what Pete and I are talking when we're like, we're going out tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're looking at these exact maps and marking these exact waypoints. And we just kind of wanted to give you guys the breakdown on how we use this ourselves.
Yes. I want to thank Chase for taking the time. I mean, Chase is really our the voice here at Omnia of the consumer and our tech team, because sometimes we don't understand what the tech guys are trying to tell us here. Chase is the one who gets the joy of breaking that down and getting it, digesting it to us, and from an angler's perspective, telling us that. So look for him to be a tool for you guys, our customers, to understand more about Pro as we advance it more. I know we touched on it briefly, and I'm going to run over you, but there's a whole bunch of features that ladder on top of these features we just showed you that are going to help you in the boat and out of the boat coming down the pipeline. This was our opportunity to kind of start a step one of here are the features.
Exactly.
And I think as we get into this more, we are going to get more technical.
Each segment is going to, like our next segment, I'll just give it up. We're going to do waypoints.
Yeah, there you go.
And so our next segment of this is going to be an absolute deep dive into waypoints. How can you filter them? How do you use them? How do you create them?
Yeah.
How do you import and export them?
Yeah, that's going to be big. And you guys can imagine this is going to work for all the electronics manufacturers, all that stuff. But we'll also be able to layer in some guests and some people that are going to get really technical on specific techniques that work in these situations,
Yep.
specifics on bodies of water. We're not going to get into spot-specific stuff on bodies of water. We gave up some little things we were looking at here that we're blind looking at some stuff on here. But we will get into high productive areas, especially on big tournament fisheries where they're wrapping up tournaments and things of that nature. So be yourselves thinking of questions and sharing them. Like I said, this is getting uploaded to our YouTube page, so you'll be able to watch this in length again and ask questions in there. We are going to pay attention to those comments. Remember, hello@omniafishing.com. Ask questions, reach out to us. We're excited to see where this thing goes, and we're excited for many more episodes of Know Your Holes.
Know your holes.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Kip. Thanks to all you that watch. Thanks for all of you that ask questions. We look forward to seeing you next time on Know Your Holes.